Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome here as we get ready for the last race of the regular season of the first season of the NNSCRA TaxSlayer Truck Series. It is now the weekend here at M&Ms Super Speedway, where we will be determining the playoffs grids for all three of our series, TaxSlayer Truck Series, Pizza Hut X Series, and Hershey's Cup Series, where we will be determining the 8, 12, and 16 drivers that will battle for the respective championships. For the Truck Series, they're going to be having a 5-race chase. 5-race chase as well, I believe it is. It might be 7. I got to look and make sure. For the Pizza Hut X Series drivers. And then 10-race chase for the Hershey's Cup Series drivers. But this has been the series, I think, where the most pressure has been put on drivers of trying to make the playoffs because there are so few playoff positions available. 8 in total. And there have been so many drivers that have gone to victory lane this season that there are so many that you can even say right now that have wins that more than likely are not going to be making it into the postseason battling for the title. The likes of Alex Gray, our Daytona winner Tony Green, Jake Moss, Joshua Ciculli, Paul Minnick, Jordan Lopez, who went to victory lane for the second time this season last week at DuQuoin. These are drivers that have been to victory lane but are not eligible right now with where they are positioned in the point standings for those wins to count towards one of those 8 playoff positions. So let's try and give you the scenarios coming into this of who's in, who's out, who's got a chance, who really needs a good run today. Let's try and fill you in on all that information right now. Now, coming into this race, 2 drivers are definitely locked into the playoffs. They are Joshua Hyatt and Charles Jackson. Each one have 2 wins, and they are both running inside the top 10 in the point standings, which means mathematically they cannot fall outside of the top 30 in the points. A big question mark driver of whether he's locked in or not is Nicholas Raill, who went to victory lane last week for the second time this season. He has 2 wins now. However, he's only 5 points ahead of the cut line of 30th in the point standings. If he does not stay in the top 30 in the points by the time the checkered flag waves here today, he drops out of the top 30 in the points. Those 2 wins, they don't count for a thing, and he would not make it into the postseason with a chance of winning the championship. So he needs a really good run today, really needs stage points, and he's got to basically try and finish ahead of drivers such as Eli Bright, who's starting the outside of the front row here, Gabe Williams, Jack Lagasee, Isaac Nicholls. If he can be ahead of those drivers by the time we finish out this race, he might be in a good position to make it into the playoffs. But then you've got other drivers. You've got Ace Garcia, Nick Johnson. They're locked in. They each have a win. They're high enough in the point standings. They cannot drop any lower. Let's get the command first, and I'll fill you in on the rest.
Start your engines!
So they are locked in, regardless of what happens here basically today, although I'm certain with momentum they would love to get a good finish. And then you get to the drivers where there's the question mark, where the big battle might take place of who might be in, who might be out. You've got Carter Friesen, you've got Jonathan Zoerlein, Marcus Saatchi. This is where the battle is going to take place, because from Carter Friesen back to Saatchi, there is a mere 22 points separating them. And with stage points coming into play in this race, those 22 points aren't a heck of a whole lot. Another thing these drivers are going to have to worry about are some drivers that could be a late season winner, like Michael Whitman, Ricky Cervantes, Ryan Madden, Seth Cole, Jessica Miles, Ryan Brommer, pole sitter Joseph Srigley, Zach Rogers, Shane Lake, also Tristan Allen, Eli Sazak. If any of those drivers are able to get a dominant run today and a win, it could be very likely that Saatchi, Zoerlein, or Friesen could find themselves all of a sudden on the outside of the playoffs grid. It's going to be very difficult for me today to be able to try and determine who's in, who's out during the live points games because of the fact that stage points will be coming into play in this one as well, and I cannot make a mental memory in my head of who got what for stage points in these 3 stages today, so you're going to have to bear with me. I'm going to just have to make educated guesses on who I think is in, who I think is out. We'll have to wait and rely on the official points at the end of the race to give us the absolute certainty of the 8 drivers that will be battling for the championship here this season in TaxSlayer Truck Series competition. With the 3 stages, it will be 8, 8, and 10 for our stages here today, and I really think those stage points are going to play a huge factor into who's going to make the playoffs and who isn't here at M&M's Super Speedway. Pace truck makes the left-hand turn onto pit road. We're ready to go racing for 26 laps. Will we see someone make a last-ditch effort to get into the playoffs? What's going to happen here? Green flags in the air. We're underway at M&M's. Let's roll! already everybody jumping to that low line. There goes Sazak, Miles, Zoerlein, Saatchi. As Eli Bright shifts from the high line to the inside line, he'll hang on to second, going into one behind the 90 of J Srigley. Down the back straightaway they go. They're going to fan out 3 wide, sometimes even 4 wide. We've even seen some drivers get such a run, they actually go down to the apron and the grass on the back straightaway. And it looks like J Srigley will get himself a very valuable bonus point by leading a lap. And he is one of those drivers, as I mentioned, that coming into this race, if he can get stage points. Oh, we got a wreck in the back. Someone just went around and turn 4, and the caution is out here on lap number 1. Now look at them, they were already fanned out 5 wide coming down the front straightaway, getting ready to go into 1 again, but caution's out, so maybe fortunately we don't get to see the end result of what would have happened with that 5 wide situation. See who was involved in this. Nick Johnson in the 42 involved. Looks like he might have spun to pit road. There's some smoke coming all the way down to the pit road entrance, and like he's going to continue on and still be on the lead lap. Jake Moss back here in the 24. It was just barely in the frame, but not enough to be able to see, so I don't know exactly how the wreck started. And so we will take a look here at a replay of what puts under the caution for the first time here today on lap number 1 here at M&Ms. Well, let's find out what happened here. Nick Johnson in the middle. They're 3 wide, 4 wide a little further back. Oh, watch the 99 of Ryan Madden and the 01 of Darren Davidson. That's exactly where the incident starts. Davidson gets up into Jake Moss in the 24, and then Nick Johnson goes around off the nose of Ryan Madden. He's going to go down and hit that inside wall with the right rear of his machine, and he was indeed the car that spun down towards the pit road entrance. Right there you see where that M&M's sign is, that red M&M's sign. That is the commitment line. And since the 42 slid across it, he decided, well, we're already committed. We might as well come down pit road and make a pit stop. And he was able to get himself back out on the lead lap still. So that was actually some pretty good idea on the part of Nick Johnson. There's Jake Moss in the 24. I don't know how hard a hit he took into the wall. He and Darren Davidson both hit that outside wall with pretty good contact. And we're going to have to see if they're going to be up to speed or not. But Nick Johnson kind of dodging a bullet there, kind of making the best out of a little bit of an incident there out of turn 4. Already comes into this race locked into the playoffs, and now just trying to see if he can finish out the regular season with some good momentum. Lights are out top the pace truck. We'll go back green on lap 6 of 26. J Srigley will be the leader over Eli Bright, Eli Sazak, Charles Jackson, and Stuart Gratton. All 42 trucks are still running and are still on the lead lap. We saw Nick Johnson make that pit stop after he was spun to pit road. A couple of other drivers also came to pit road to get some damage repaired, including Jake Moss, also Darren Davidson, and Jake Rogers. They have all, though, returned back to the racetrack, and they are at the tail end of the field. Gave you top 5. Go back through the top 10. It's Jessica Miles, Jonathan Zoerlein, Ryan Brommer, Joshua Hyatt, and Michael Whitman. And up here in this group are a number of those drivers that we mentioned that were those drivers that with a win could very much spoil the playoffs grid. Srigley is 1, Sazak, they're in 3rd, Miles in 6th, Brommer in 8th, and Whitman in 10th. And we saw last week at DuQuoin in the Hershey's Cup Series race, winning the second dual race was Garrett Sidner, and now he comes into this weekend currently holding on to one of the 16 playoff spots there. So it's when we get to the nitty-gritty down to the very end of the regular season, we start to see some drivers do that last-ditch effort. I mean, cast your memory back to last season in the Hershey's Cup Series. Blaine Keys went to victory lane for the first time in that season at this very racetrack and got himself with that win into the playoffs. So can we see lightning strike once again here at this super speedway? We'll find out. Green flag back in the air as we are 3 laps away from the completion of our first stage, and those 10 valuable stage points could mean a lot to somebody like Srigley, like Sazak, Miles, Brommer, Whitman, who are trying to get themselves up there with a win to get into the playoffs grid. Srigley's got a very strong truck. We had the caution come out on lap 1, so we didn't really get to see whether someone was going to be able to get up there and challenge him for the race lead or not. But at the moment, they are too focused on battling for second place. Stuart Gratton going to drive to the bottom. Sazak put in the middle. Eli Bright way up top. Jonathan Zoerlein right there, along with Joshua Hyatt and Marcus Saatchi. Zoerlein and Saatchi, as we mentioned, two of those drivers that are battling each other, not knowing whether or not another first-time winner will go to victory lane here today and maybe knock one of them out of the playoffs. The other driver also involved in that battle, Carter Friesen in the 29. I couldn't tell if that was his blue truck back there in the inside line or not. It's hard to tell him and his teammate I Nicholls apart. But we now have a new leader, Stuart Gratton in the 31. Gratton last season drove in the Pizza Hut X Series. He had a win that came at Bristol Dirt, but he wasn't high enough in the point standings to battle for in the playoffs there. Well, coming into this race, Stuart Gratton finds himself 24th in the point standings, so he really would need a big-time points day in order to have himself with a shot of making it into the Elite 8, as now Marcus Saatchi side by side with him in the 74, and Saatchi will lead that lap next time around at the end of the first stage. And Marcus Saatchi, we mentioned that he's in that kind of critical position of whether or not he would make it into the playoff 8. Well, if he could get himself a stage win and 10 valuable bonus points, that certainly would help his cause, help him move up a little bit higher in the point standings with that win. Stuart Gratton, though, wants to win this stage just as much. Toyota Tundra versus Chevy Silverado. Will Gratton make a move down here into 3 and 4? As these two look like they'll be the ones to settle it here for who's going to get the 10 valuable bonus points for winning stage number 1 here at M&Ms. Problem for Stuart Gratton is he doesn't have anybody there behind him to offer drafting help if he makes a move. So Marcus Saatchi, this could right here help seal the deal for him to make it into the playoffs, as he's going to get 10 bonus points here winning stage number 1. Coming into this race, based off of our live playoffs grid, Marcus Saatchi was in playoff spot number 8. And that may have just helped move him up a little bit there. He came into this race about 16 points behind Jonathan Zoerlein, and as mentioned, roughly 20 points behind Carter Friesen. So he gained a little bit of ground there on Zoerlein. Not much though, because Zoerlein finished 6th in that stage and got himself 5 bonus points in that stage. The one that's kind of missing from all of this is the 29 of Carter Friesen, who is back here. It was actually Nicholls I saw down there on the bottom. There is Friesen caught up on the top side. And he is losing spots. He's going to lose a spot right there to A Yepez. Patrick Smith down there on the inside line. That outside line, for the moment, not going anywhere. And Carter Friesen is losing some very valuable positions. Speaking of not getting valuable positions, how about the 94 of Nicholas Raill? Remember we mentioned he comes in just barely ahead of the cut line. He is a mere 5 points ahead of Alex Gray in the point stands. Gray is just ahead of him there in the 0 truck. And Nicholas Raill is right now running at the tail end of the field. Now keep in mind, if Nicholas Raill cannot finish in the top 30 in the point stands by the time the checkered flag waves here today, Nicholas Raill and his 2 wins will not make it into the playoffs. Eli Bright is already up towards, well, he was up towards the front. We saw him kind of fading back. Drivers that Nicholas Raill needs to stay ahead of include drivers like Alex Gray and A Yepez. Gray is right now ahead of him. There you see him about 3 positions ahead. And A Yepez is up just outside of the top 10. Got an interesting pack back here. Jake Moss, Nick Johnson, Ryan Madden, Jordan Lopez, Darren Davidson, along with Dylan Theroux and Gabe Williams. Lopez has 2 wins, one last week, but he's not eligible to get up into the top 30 in the points. Nick Johnson's already locked into the playoffs grid. The guy that right now this is not good for is right there, Ryan Madden. Second in the point standings, 8 points back from Ace Garcia, but the more important thing, he doesn't have a win this season. If he had a win here today, there's no doubt he would be in one of the playoff grid positions, but the fact that he is back here with this group that has lost the lead pack. That does not look like a good scenario for the driver of the 99. Up front, Marcus Saatchi trying to pick up his second win of the season. Trying to pick up as many stage points as possible as well. He's already got 10 stage points in the bank, winning the first stage here today. Marcus Saatchi, who went to victory lane quite early on this season, back at, I believe it was at Texas, I want to say. No, that was Ciculli who won that race. Where did Saatchi win? Trying to find out where it was. Oh, that's right, it was at Iowa. And trying to join Charles Jackson and Joshua Hyatt, and potentially Nicholas Raill, depending on where Raill finishes out this race, as a two-time winner this season. I mean, you think about it here, we don't really talk a whole lot about it, but we kind of should. The fact that with the different stage points that people win, with the playoff points, it's going to be reformatted with those playoff points added. Right now, Joshua Hyatt has 7 stage points, Charles Jackson with 5. And coming into this race, not counting his stage 1 win, Marcus Saatchi only had 1 stage playoff point. That was after he won the race back at Iowa, winning the third and final stage of that race. So he right now is up to 2 playoff points when the standings are reformatted. And take a look here. Now, we're looking at A Yepez for a very important reason. That's because he's one of those drivers that came into this race behind Nicholas Raill in the point standings. And now he's going to move by for the race lead. So this is definitely not something Nicholas Raill needed to see. A driver that came in behind him in the point standings, running up better than he is. Let's actually see where Raill's running now. In the 94, he's 34th. And 5 positions ahead of him is Alex Gray. The 2 drivers I think right now that Nicholas Raill needs to worry about is the 00 and the 0. Because those could be the 2 drivers that could stop Nicholas Raill from making it into the playoffs. He has to finish 30th in the points or better, finishing out this season for his 2 wins to count. Another driver that's also behind him in the standings that's up here inside the top 3 now, that 97 of Julius Anderson. Gray was 30th in points, Yepez 31st, and Anderson 32nd. Anderson came into this race a total of 10 points, I believe? No. 13 points back behind Nicholas Raill, and now he's up here towards the front. Also, big problem is we're going to be coming around getting the proverbial white flag for this second stage, and Yepez and Anderson are up here inside the top 10, which means they're going to get stage points as well. Add that on to the amount of points they're trying to close in on Nicholas Raill. Raill's nowhere close to being up inside the top 10. He's not going to have any bonus points, any stage points to counter it. Stuart Gratton helping Marcus Saatchi there up on the top side. That's going to keep the 74 in the race lead. You got to wonder if some of these playoff drivers, or potential playoff drivers I should say, went to some of the guys that really didn't have a shot of making it into the playoffs and said, hey, look, you know, you do me a good turn here, help me make the playoffs, I'll help you maybe get a win later on down the road. And right now it looks like Stuart Gratton is doing just that. He's been the one on the top side, the wingman for Marcus Saatchi to be out in front. But look right there, 3rd and 4th. 8 points are going to go to A Yepez. 7 points are going to go to Julius Anderson. Things looking bleaker and bleaker for Nicholas Raill. And pit stops are taking place. Coming to the end of the second stage, Saatchi's going to get the stage points. 10 stage points. Easton Barber stayed out. Tyler Deaver stayed out. I'd be curious to know if Nicholas Raill stayed out. No, he didn't. That might have been in his best interest to risk it and stay out, but he didn't. And Anderson still got stage points. He got 8th place. Yepez, however, I think had a pit stall before the start-finish line, so he lost out on some valuable stage points right there. Is Saatchi, Easton Barber, Tyler Deaver, Isaac Nicholls, Carter Friesen all decided to stay out, along with, it looks like, Zach Rogers. That's big for Carter Friesen getting those stage points. So Friesen trying to make his opportunity to make it into the playoffs be a reality, as now Saatchi, Barber, the two teammates of Nicholls and Friesen are in, but Tyler Deaver is going to stay out another lap in the 30 truck. About Zach Rogers, he coming in? Yes, he is. And Nick Johnson is also going to come to pit road. Nick Johnson was able to make it a little bit further than everybody else due to the fact he came to pit road when he spun out back on lap number 1, but he's still on the lead lap. So let's find Tyler Deaver in the 30 truck, who is the only truck now that is yet to hit pit road. There he is. And now we have entered into our third and final stage. Tyler Deaver will hit pit lane, will actually follow the 30 and see where he's going to come out in relation to everybody else. So green flag pit stops taking place here between laps 16 to 18. And that was with a caution flag coming out before, so something would tell me the fuel window is somewhere between 15 to 17 laps, roughly. No tires for Tyler Deaver. They're just going to get that thing as full of fuel as possible and send him down and away. Now, the one problem for Tyler Deaver is this is a super speedway, and a lot of the drivers that came to pit road had friends that came with them that they'll be able to hook up with and produce more speed as a unit rather than as a single truck. So Tyler Deaver might be at a bit of a speed disadvantage when and if the rest of the leaders come around and catch him. The leaders just hit the line, so Marcus Saatchi, who looks like he is the head of that lead group, trying to reel in the 30. Actually, he doesn't have any friends either. And he's going to try and swing around the outside line to take the race lead back, and he will succeed in doing so. Ace Garcia has now jumped up to the third position there in the 51. He's already locked into the playoffs. Easton Barber there as well, Jack Lagasee, Patrick Smith, Isaac Nicholls. You know, Isaac Nicholls, this is actually really good for him right now in the fact that he was trying to catch Davey Johnson, 12 points ahead of him. And right at this current point in time, if Nicholas Raill does not make it into the playoffs, then that 8th position in the point stands is up for grabs, and it would come down between the 19 and the 77. And keep in mind, Isaac Nicholls got some stage points after the second stage. And there was a wreck that took place in turn 1. Are we under caution? There's some skid marks that went up there towards the turn 1 wall. We're not under yellow. I don't know what those skid marks are from. As Tyler Deaver now goes back around Marcus Saatchi, and I just noticed as well back here, Davey Johnson in the 77. Remember we mentioned it's between him and Isaac Nicholls right now for that final spot. If Nicholas Raill falls outside the top 30 in the points, well, Nicholls is 11th. Davey Johnson is all the way back in the 41st position, and Michael Whitman is out of the race. A valve issue for him. That's his playoff hopes done. Raill is back in 35th. Johnson back in 41st. The drivers that are trying to capitalize on that are the 74 of Marcus Saatchi and the 19 of Isaac Nicholls, who are both right now running in 2nd and 11th. And it will be 5 laps to go next time by. A couple of Toyota Tundras out in front. Tyler Deaver showing the way. Marcus Saatchi there in 2nd. Now Saatchi, I think, is in a very good position right at the moment to be able to make it into the playoffs if he finishes where he is. The question is, how much of a forcing the issue is he going to be of trying to get the race win from Tyler Deaver? Deaver has not been to victory lane yet this season. He wants his first win of the year. And he's probably going to put up a bit of a fight as well against Marcus Saatchi. So if you're Saatchi, would you rather just ride? Take the 2nd place position? You've already got 20 valuable stage points winning the first 2 stages of this race, and you're going to get another 9 stage points finishing 2nd, which I think basically has locked Marcus Saatchi into the playoffs. So why force the issue and take a chance of wrecking yourself? Meanwhile, these guys might want to look behind them because there's another Toyota Tundra that is reeling them in. Ace Garcia is bringing a big group of drivers with him, and they are producing some pretty good speed. Last time by, they cut it down by about 0.3 of a second. And they are still continuing to produce speed. As these two race side by side, they're going to lose speed, and that's just going to allow this pack to catch them even quicker. Last time by, it was 2.9 seconds. This time by, it is about the same. Wow, that's surprising, especially with the fact that these two were side by side for a moment. So now, with time running out, maybe these guys won't catch first and second, which may not exactly be the best thing for Marcus Saatchi if he's trying to win this race, because he's not going to have a drafting partner to help push him by the 30. He's going to have to do it all on his own. If I were the 74, I would just ride. You've got to win. You've got some valuable stage points here today. You're going to get more valuable stage points, 9 in total, after finishing second in this race. I think Marcus Saatchi right now is most definitely going to make the playoffs, so why force the issue? Just ride, just let Tyler Deaver win the race. That time by, the gap was cut down by about 3/10 from second back to third, but 3/10 a lap ain't going to cut it, because there's 3 laps to go in this one, and now Saatchi back to the bottom, going to try and take the top position from Tyler Deaver. He's alongside going down the back straightaway. Question is, can he follow it up with a good run here into 3 and 4? Losing some ground there is Tyler Deaver, using the side draft on the top side. Is going to swing back to the lead, and now will clear Marcus Saatchi and keep the top position once again. Got a battle back here for 4th place. Martin Zakala and Mason Wood. Easton Barber and Caitlin Tsang just back there as well. Julius Anderson up here inside the top 10. That is not good for Nicholas Raill. Let's find out where the 77 is running, as Isaac Nicholls is in 10th. Davey Johnson is still back in 40th. Nicholas Raill is 38th. Gray is ahead of him. R Yepez is ahead of him, and as is Julius Anderson. I have a feeling a 2-time winner is not going to make the playoffs in the form of Nicholas Raill with where he is right now. Less than 2 seconds. Back to Ace Garcia that last time by. He is closing, but I don't think he's closing quickly enough. He'd love to make it a 3 Toyota truck fight here for the win. But I just don't think they've got enough time, because the white flag's going to be displayed this time by Tyler Deaver, Marcus Saatchi. One of these 2 drivers going to win this thing. Deaver looking for his first win of the season. Saatchi looking for his second. Saatchi's going to make the playoffs. Deaver is not. So Deaver wants to get the win. Says, hey, Marcus, you're going to make the playoffs. Let me have this victory. But Marcus Saatchi says, no, sir. I'm going to try and take this race win away from you. Question is, though, can he stay alongside down the back straightaway? He's tried this before, and Tyler Deaver's been able to clear him going into 3, and Deaver will do it once again. No drafting help to help Marcus Saatchi by Tyler Deaver. Tyler Deaver is going to pick up his first win of the season in the TaxSlayer Truck Series, closing out the regular season with a W down the front straightaway for the final time. The regular season finale at M&Ms goes to Tyler Deaver. Marcus Saatchi will have to settle for second, but the good news is he's locked into the playoffs. Both of the Flickinger Racing development cars going to be battling for the championship. Nick Johnson came into this race already locked in. Ace Garcia already came locked in, but now comes the big question about Nicholas Raill, Davey Johnson, and Isaac Nicholls. Session, I believe, is complete. Not yet. Still waiting for a couple of drivers to cross the line. No Charles Jackson's locked into the playoffs. We know that Joshua Hyatt is locked into the playoffs. Ace Garcia, Nick Johnson, they're locked in. Carter Friesen got 12th, so he would be locked in. Jonathan Zoerlein, where'd he finish? 16th. That'll be enough for him to get locked in, and we know that Marcus Saatchi is locked in. So now the question is, who has the 8th spot? The 8th spot would currently have been held by 2-time winner Nicholas Raill. Where did he finish? 40th. He needed to stay in the top 30 in the points. He needed to stay ahead of Alex Gray. Where did Alex Gray finish? 32nd, and he was 5 points back behind Nicholas Raill, so that would drop Nicholas Raill down to 30th in points. A Yepez, he came into this race 10 points behind behind Nicholas Raill. With finishing 40th, he would have to finish 30th or better. Where did Yepez finish this race? He finished in 13th. That drops Nicholas Raill to 31st. And he also was a mere 13 points ahead of Julius Anderson, who finished in 8th, which means that Nicholas Raill may have dropped as far as 32nd in the points after this race, which means Nicholas Raill, outside the top 30 in the points, those 2 wins count for nothing. He will not be in the playoffs. So now that 8th spot in the standings opens up between Davey Johnson and Isaac Nicholls. Now, Nicholls already had some stage points, but let's ignore the stage points and just look at the overall points and see who gets that 8th spot. The gap between Davey Johnson, who was ahead of Nicholls coming into this race, the gap was a total of 12 points. Davey Johnson finished 37th today. For Nicholls to take the final transfer position, he would have to finish in the 24th position or better. Nicholls finished in 10th. So it's going to be, I'm pretty certain officially, Joshua Hyatt, Charles Jackson, Ace Garcia, Nick Johnson, Carter Friesen, Jonathan Zoerlein, Marcus Saatchi, and Isaac Nicholls that will battle this season in the 8-driver playoffs for the championship. That's just my educated guess, just based off of overall points mathematically. You guys will find out the official word in just a moment. Thank you all for tuning into this race, though. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe, become part of the crew today. We've shown you your full finisher results. Next up, you're going to see your overall points heading into our first race of the postseason. The drivers that are highlighted in yellow are the drivers that are going to be making it into the playoffs, and you will also see after that the reformatted points for those 8 drivers in the chase, including the playoff points that these drivers have earned during the course of the season. So thank you all for tuning in. We will see you guys next time. The continuation of this weekend, we will determine the playoff drivers for Pizza Hut X Series and the playoff drivers for the Hershey's Cup Series here at M&M Super Speedway. Till then, you've been watching a production of the NNSCRA Offline Racing at its best. So long from M&Ms.